Hey guys, hopefully this will be a pretty quick tutorial. I'm going to show you how to make a topographic contour lines in Sketchup and then export it into Rhino and create a solid 3D model out of it. So first thing we need to do is get into Sketchup. You need to go to the Add Location button, click it. I've already got a location picked out. Next thing you're going to do is select region and use these pins to determine how big of an area that you want. Go ahead and click Grab. Then you'll have this. Sometimes it'll import it and the terrain won't look curvy like this. It'll be because of this add or toggle terrain button. Just go ahead and click that and it'll show you the shape that you've chosen with a little image on top of it. So in order to get our contour lines out of that, we need to create a rectangle that's bigger than that surface. And then we need to move it down just so that it's barely under the bottom edge. That looks pretty good. Next thing we need to do is determine how often we want contour lines. And it's really up to you, but if I were to recommend, I would say just think about the scale at which you're going to be using this. So this is pretty big, but the more contour lines, the smoother it's going to be in Rhino. And if you're using the contour lines to make an actual physical topographical model, then that's important too. So for example, let's say you're using 1/8 inch cardboard, then you want to make each of your at 1/8 inch cardboard and 1/8 scale, so that 1/8 is equal to a foot. Then you'll want to copy these up at 1 foot increments. That way it matches the scale of the dimensions of your building material. So, but for this, we're just going to go ahead and do 2 feet every 2 feet instead of every 1 foot. So let's just assume we're building a 1/8 inch model with 1/4 inch cardboard. So anyways, what we're going to do is we're going to push M for the move, and we're going to hold or push Control or Command, and then we get a little plus sign on our cursor. We're going to click it, and we're going to make sure that we're in the blue axis, and we're going to type in whatever we want. In this case, it's going to be 2 feet increments, and then we're going to specify how many times we want to copy that up. So for this model, I'm going to go ahead and say 70x, and it looks pretty good. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to select this, all of our surfaces that we just made, and we're going to turn it into a group. We're going to right click it and go to intersect faces with model. Sometimes it takes a minute depending on how much you've got going on. Didn't take too long. Go ahead and delete that group, and you can see that you have all your topographical lines on top of that surface. You can delete that, and then what you want to do is save it. Save as. I'm going to save mine as a version 7 because every time I try to import something from SketchUp version 8, it crashes my Rhino. So if you don't have that problem, then that's good. But if you notice that it doesn't work, try using SketchUp version 7 and go ahead and click Save. I've already made this, so just go ahead and override that. Then you want to go to Rhino, type in Import, and then go down to your file, Open. These import options are pretty basic. I just usually skip it and click OK. Now it's humongous. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete this map surface that came with it, and then I have my topography. For some reason, I get problems when I try to do this with closed curves. But the first thing we're going to do is select all of our curves and hit join. Might take a second. We have about 10,000 curves. Okay, so there we go. Next thing we want to do is I'm going to deselect this so it doesn't give us any problems. In some instances, it might be a big deal, and if that's the case, you can just open this up and bring it to the edge, and that should help out with the problems that it would give. Basically, if you were to do it with that selected, it'll do what we're about to do, which is create a surface, but out of only that one closed surface. I suppose another way around it would be to create a rectangle so I'm making these lines so I know where the absolute ends are. So I'm going to go ahead and make a rectangle. That encompasses all of that. So it looks like it didn't fit right, but it is around the whole perimeter. Go ahead and select that, and we're going to type in patch. Now, I don't know if this is going to work. In fact, it probably won't work. It'll probably create a surface out of this whole border here. Definitely doesn't look like it likes that. Yeah, that was problematic. It's trying to use it and bring everything back up. So I'm going to skip that, and we're going to delete this. We're going to try that again. Hit patch. So these settings are pretty basic. The only thing that I usually change is the surface U and surface V spans. That's basically the XY grid that it's going to use to determine the complexity and smoothness of the surface that it's going to make. So 25 is pretty good. Hit OK. Let this run again. Okay, so there we have our surface. Now, we have this extra surface here, and that's going to throw everything off. So what we're going to want to do is trim that surface. So in order to do that, we're going to go ahead and make these lines again. Make a rectangle. Then we're going to extrude this. And I'm going to push B for both ways. And I'm also going to do solid no. You can do solid and trim it that way, but I'm going to do it this way, just to show a little bit different workflow. So we're going to select that new extrusion, and we're going to hit trim, and then we're going to select the excess that's outside of our topography here. We can go ahead and delete that. Delete these reference lines. We can I don't have that grouped. So we're going to group that. We're going to hide it. So in order to make this a solid, what we're going to want to do is take this edge here and bring it below the edge of our topography. And we're going to want to get this edge here by typing DUPF, which will bring up the rest of the duplicate face border. Hit OK. And then So we have our curve here, and then we're going to loft that with the flat curve. Now this distance doesn't really matter. It just needs to be below the lowest point of your surface. So type loft. And in the loft command or options, you want to make sure that you have straight sections. If you don't have straight sections and there's some funky geometry in there, then it might try to account for it, and then these edges here won't be square. And if you don't want it square, then that's fine, but I think we want it square for today. So we have our top surface, and we have our lofted surface. I'm going to hit join, and now it's all one surface, except it's still hollow on the bottom. So all we have to do there is type cap. And now it's a solid. So far, so good. Now you can go ahead and plop your building in there, and it's good. I've already made the building. It's not a cool building, but it's a building nonetheless. And it's tiny. So you can see it's kind of floating here. Yeah, I don't know. Not too bad. And you're building. Now, one thing that's pretty cool is whoops. Okay, so if you create the basic footprint as a solid, and you can take that into your model here, and you can go to this Boolean operations and go to Boolean difference, hit that with this selected, and then this is your this is your cutting object, your difference subtracting object, and then you go ahead and hit OK and right click. You can delete that, and now you have a nice little spot for your building to fit in there. Now if you have like a uniquely shaped building, that would be good if you're building a physical model and you want to know how to cut that out. You can just refer back to your Rhino model and make all the measurements on your cardboard or whatever material you're using, and then just plop it in there, just like so. And then you have your little surface, and that is how you make topography in Rhino using SketchUp information. If this was helpful, please like, please subscribe, and please comment. If you have any questions, please comment. Shoot me a message. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and stay tuned for more tutorials.